All right, guys. Week 1 done. Week 2 done. Let's talk about week 2 though. So we have discovered that my dragon this last week has been technology, because every time I have gone to post videos and get stuff done and even send emails, it has just been a disaster. So Mrs. Cold the Jelly's Mrs. Cold the Jelly's dragon this year is technology. Um, Hopefully I can conquer it by the end of the year. So thank you for sticking with me. Week 2 was a great week. We added a rectangle table, and that helped me so much. I don't know why, but I hate circle tables. So that rectangle table was great. We started with geography again right away, and this time I had the kids look at the black line. And so after we had already set it, I had them flip quick to the colored side of the map that has all of the answers on it and find it, and then flip back over and be able to show me and show their peers. So it was a good way to like go between the two and really like see the black line, and then also even like using the map that has the information on it and being able to find that information quickly. So we had to flip the maps to Europe. We went from the whole world to Europe, and then I think we go back to the whole world again soon. But for Europe this week, it was European waters. And we talked about the North Sea, Baltic Sea, Adriatic Sea, English Channel, and Mediterranean Sea. And the kids did a great job with that. And a lot of them are familiar enough with the maps and reading maps that they were super fast with it. We did timeline, and for timeline we did battleship again, and the class won. So it's 1-1. We're even so far. For math, I really wanted to get some movement in, so I put some painter's tape on the ground, and then in the sanctuary where we're at, there's already another like white line that's been taped down, and I chose 2 students at a time to go and run lines. So they would do down and back from line to line, and that would be like 1, 2. And so then I had Mr. Steinberger. He was counting laps for us, and Mrs. Nimmer was counting laps for us. And then the kids were running, and they had as much time as it took the rest of the class and myself to repeat the math facts. So we did 3s and 4s. So we would say 3 times 1 is 3. And we tried to go through it quick enough so that we were also racing with the kids who were racing back and forth, and I recorded everyone's laps. And so we'll do this again. I'll bring it back throughout the year, and we'll see by the end of the year what the record is for the most laps done during math facts. Then for history, we had Tell Me About William the Conqueror. So I handed everyone a sheet of paper, and they took turns making the split sound. So they would rip the sheet of paper right when we'd say the church split, then they'd rip it. It sounded cool, and it's always fun to rip a piece of paper. So it was in 1054 the church split, and then they would rip it into Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox. And we just sang through the song a few times as each student took turns ripping. For science, I did hand motions again. And science was what are some land biomes. Some land biomes are, we did grassland, so we kind of made the grass. And then we had desert, so we just fanned ourselves. And then we kind of scrubland, and that led into freezing tundra. And then we made this like a tree, and then the leaves falling down, so we said deciduous forest. And then we made like cones on the trees, coniferous forest. And then we did our hands like this for tropical rainforest. For English, we talked about a pronoun, and for that, I had a giant P and an N, so pronoun and noun. And so 2 students, one was a pronoun, one was a noun. And as we sang the song that I had, when we would say a pronoun replaces a noun, the person that was a pronoun would go and stand and replace the person who was a noun in line. And we sang that to the tune of a pronoun replaces a noun in order to avoid repetition. A pronoun replaces a noun in order to avoid repetition, 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 repetition. But yeah, so that was good. It gave some more movement, and it's so quick and short, and just singing that song helps get it stuck in your head. For Latin, same thing as last week. First conjugation endings, present tense. So just remember, when we get a present, we say, oh, thank you, and OST, must isn't, OST, must isn't. Then for fine arts, we did mirror images. And for that, we talked about the line of symmetry. So that's the big vocab word for fine arts, was that line of symmetry being that dividing line where both sides are exactly the same, but just reflected oppositely. And I showed some pictures of symmetry and some pictures that aren't symmetry, and so they talked about those and the difference there. And then to continue with our theme of knighthood, I brought a bunch of different blank shields. And so this was one that one of the moms helped draw for one of the students that wasn't there. But you can see she did symmetry with 2 crowns, an A, and also mirrored. And the kids came up with some like awesome looking shields. So they were making their knight shields and putting some cool thought into, like, one of them was ivy and keys, one had a dragon on it. So they did a great job again of working. We folded the shield in half before we did it to create that line of symmetry, and then we tried to mirror our work. And doing that, working on the mirror images, is just forcing us to slow our brains down, because sometimes our brains just work too fast. And when we slow our brains down like that, with being forced to make a mirror image, it's really helpful. And we're going to talk even more about that next week too. It's just a good way to help you break down drawing and make it simpler by looking for those oils, the elements of shape. For presentation time, again, students did great. I know that there is some presentation, well, there was. If you guys want, like, presentation ideas, I know that there's been, like, presentation bingo in the past that, like, parents have done with students. They're doing great, so I'm not worried about that. Also, then for science, we did mirage and distortion. Those were our 2 experiments. So it was talking about the sun again. And for mirage, we talked about, okay, why do we have to wear safety glasses when we're looking at an eclipse, but we just stare at sunrises and sunsets? And we talked about how the atmosphere is filtering the sun for us, like those safety glasses are, and that when it's setting, there is a lot more filter for our eyes. It goes from 2 miles to 120 miles, I believe, of atmosphere that's filtering that sun's light. So we're not damaging our eyes. So our question was, why and how is that possible? And so we talked about it's the atmosphere filtering the sun's energy. And then for distortion, it was also talking about the sun and why does the sun, if you've ever watched a sunset, it looks like a different shape. It looks to almost flatten out and sometimes even separate. And so I showed some cool pictures of that. And we talked about how, and for mirage too, when you are looking at a sunset, you're not actually looking right at the sun because the light is bending through the atmosphere and it's actually reflecting that up to, or bending that up to you. So you're not looking directly at the sun, it's just projecting an image, so that would be the mirage. It's not really there. And we did a coin in the bottom of a pan, and there was no water in it, and then we added water, and you could see the coin reappear. So you put the coin in the bottom of the pan and step back until you can't see it, and then as you add the water, all of a sudden it looks like the coin's almost like rising. So we talked about also how like when light travels through water, it moves differently than when it's traveling through air. And then for distortion, we had our magnifying glass and we drew a dot on a paper, like a 1-inch dot. And then we moved our magnifying glass over it and we observed how the circle distorted shape. And we talked about how that happens with a sunset and how, again, that's the light bending and tricking our eyes into seeing it differently, like making it look different, distorting it for us. Then for review, I introduced another review game, and that was the game Ouch, and we got a thumbs up on that one. It was really fun. So that's picking points, and there's an ouch in there, or there's a point, or there's a Band-Aid, and it was really fun. We had one student that turned out to be the nurse because every time she picked, she got Band-Aids. So it was even fun to laugh about that. But good week overall, and I hope that this next week is super successful for you guys. And yeah, just keep being patient with me. And the parents who have been in the classroom, thank you so much. You guys have been awesome and helpful. And we will see you next week for week 3.